So my name is Sophia and my mentor was Jody Morton, and this is my research titled A Discussion of Hen Housing, Eggshell Color, and Market Source in Terms of Objectivity and Consumer Bias. Oops, sorry. So in recent years, consumers have become increasingly conscious about where their food comes from and how healthy and cruelty-free it is, which is something that has emerged in the egg field. Today, I will discuss the nuanced reality of various hen housing systems and their trade-offs, eggshell color in conjunction to hen age and breed, and market source, first from an objective standpoint, then from a consumer preference standpoint, because objectivity and consumer preference are not the same thing. Next slide. And this is just an overview of what I'm going to be talking about. So there are multiple forms of caging used to contain the chickens. Next slide. Here's some definitions of the different forms. We have individual conventional caging, which are very crowded and prioritize profit with roughly 72 square inches per hen. We have indoor cage-free aviary, which is a cage-free indoor system that provides the chickens like free access to roam around and have water and food, but it is indoors. Then there's outdoor free range, which provides the chickens free access to roam around and it provides outdoor access. And there is enriched colony housing, which cages the hens in groups of 60 to 250 hens and enriches them with areas for nesting, dust bathing, foraging, and perching. Next slide. So I categorize the systems in two groups. There are systems that provide outdoor access and are less restrictive, and there are systems that don't provide outdoor access and are more restrictive. In terms of the ones that do provide outdoor access and are less restrictive, the hen is exposed to dirt, litter, disease, and parasites at a higher rate, and the hens have more an opportunity to roam and exhibit natural behaviors, which is good in some ways, but also sometimes natural behaviors means cannibalism, which is not always that good. And it also comes with a higher likelihood of bone fractures. And in more restrictive caging systems like conventional cages, the chickens are obviously not provided as much movement space or behavioral freedom, which makes them more likely to get osteoporosis and have stress issues. On the positive side of these cages, though, it lessens chicken interaction with manure, parasites, and predators. Next slide. So eggshells come in a plethora of colors and shades that have varying implications. Next, okay. So how does eggshell color work? Eggshell color is the result of pigments from the hen's uterus during shell formation, during that stage of its development, specifically the presence of brown or blue pigments, along with alternate modifying factors such as those pigments, which I'm not going to pronounce. And if a supposed brown egg comes out lighter than it's supposed to be, pigmentation issues could be the result of either a premature egg or issues with the end of calcification. And calcification is basically like the stage when the calcium gets deposited into the eggshell. Next. In terms of hen age, the older the hen, the higher the likelihood of producing eggs that are larger sized with lighter shell pigmentation. So as the hen gets older, the eggs get bigger. As the eggs get bigger, the amount of pigment used does not change. And so it's the same amount of pigment used on a larger surface area. So it's spread out more and results in an overall lighter color of the eggshell. Next. In terms of heritability and breed, eggshell color is a heritable trait, though different colors behave differently in their appearance in the following generation. So brown pigment has a high influence in heredity, and if present, it will linger for generations. And on the opposite end, white eggs require intentional breeding for each generation to remain white. But in terms of breed, there's not much available articles about the influence of breed in eggshell color. So that was a hole in current knowledge that I found while researching. Next. Consumers are particular about which egg characteristics they choose to pay for. In terms of hen housing, the preference has been steering away from conventional cages and towards more cage-free systems such as aviary housing and free range. And corporations have even been listening to this preference. So by the year 2025, Walmart, McDonald's, and Kroger have made pledges to transition to cage-free systems. And despite this preference in the consumers, studies have suggested that when the consumer actually understands the fuller context of hen housing systems and conducts research or is shown videos of different hen housing systems, the preference changes, which implies that the consumer is not always educated in this field and is making their choices based on assumption rather than actually researching these things. In terms of eggshell color, shell color preferences vary based on location, both in the United States and in the world. In many European countries, along with northeastern US, brown shell eggs are preferred, while in the remaining parts of the US and various other countries, white shell eggs are preferred. In some parts of China, blue eggs are the preference over pink and white eggs. And despite these various preferences, the colors of eggshells do not necessarily indicate the quality or nutrition of the egg. So brown eggs are not healthier than white eggs as may be perceived, and brown eggs can come in a variety of shades that likewise do not indicate their quality. But regardless of the color of an egg, the consumer prefers a carton of eggs to be uniform, and they just perceive that as better, even though necessarily it's not really. In terms of market source, consumers typically prefer farmers market eggs, perceiving them as having a better texture, flavor, and color than industrial system type eggs bought from an average supermarket. However, whether or not there is actually a tangible difference, the environment the consumer is buying from could potentially make them biased and could play a part in this preference. So farmers markets offer direct human communication and a sense of community, unlike typical supermarkets, which separate the seller and the consumer. And so often at farmers markets, the consumers will be talking to vendors who might actually be the farmers, and they'll make changes depending on what the customers say. And so in farmers markets, the consumer has a voice and a community, which could skew their opinion on the egg's quality. So in order to bridge the gap and remove this bias, an experiment would have to be conducted in which subjects blindly taste supermarket type eggs and farmers market eggs to confirm whether or not there are actually taste differences. And just some conclusions now. So overall, the various forms of hen housing offer differing benefits and drawbacks, though consumers widely prefer free-range systems. Eggshell color is the result of the interactions between pigments, calcification, hen age, and heritability, with unclear involvement of hen breed. Consumers prefer uniform eggshell shades, and specific color preferences vary based on location, and farmers market eggs are perceived as more flavorful, though preconceived notions about the source could play a part in this. And just a big thank you to my mentor for the help along the way. So on her Zoom, she showed me the chickens on her side at the university, and she showed me the coops. And when I was confused about where to start with my research, because I didn't know anything about this topic, she gave me some articles and an outline of what I should look at, which helped a lot. And I learned a lot about the egg field and the nuances of consumer preference. And it makes me wonder what other things might be consumer preference might be different than reality. And though I didn't start off super ecstatic about researching chickens, I did end up enjoying the process, and I'm happy for the experience and technical research skills I gained. So thank you for listening. I hope you learned something.